All of the food we eat and much of the clothing we wear comes from plants and animals that are raised on farms. Farms are different in type, in size, and even in name.
Welcome to Barn Talk. What happens at the barn stays at the barn until now. We're going to let it all out for you guys. Today, like every episode, is a special episode. We have a guest on. We've done 3 different concepts of shows, and today's a guest show. So if you guys get any value from the show at all, share it out to your coworkers, share it out to your family, share it out to your friends. We're trying to grow this thing. We don't run any ads on the show, so that's kind of your ticket to admission to listen or watch the show. Drop some questions down below, because in 2 weeks we're going to do another Q&A episode where we'll answer all your guys' questions. So drop them down below. Find us on Instagram. We'll have a poll on there where you can shoot us some questions too. But I'm here with my sidekick, co-host, other host, or both hosts, my dad, Torque.
Yes, it's a great day in southeast Iowa. It's a little cooler today. I think we got a hair of rain last night, but not much. My crop is dying rapidly now, so we could use a little rain for the bean crop, I think. I think the corn's pretty well done.
We've had it better than a lot of people, though. I told you the other day, we can't really be bitching because there's some people with corn that's just dry as crap.
Yeah, no, we have been, and I feel like our crops are going to be pretty good. But if I wasn't complaining, somebody would repossess my farmer card.
There you go. So you gotta always be. You could always have something.
I'll give you the market update, which we're on Friday, so this is the close from Thursday from the Cat Grain website. Shout out to Cat Grain for supplying our information. Before I start, I do want to say one thing. I just thought about this. I want to give a shout out to Jim Eady from SwineWeb, and Jim is one of those guys that we have some kind of funny ideas, and I get going, and sometimes I stop myself and think, boy, people probably think that I'm off my rocker. So Jim's one of those guys that we've kind of had a LinkedIn thread going for quite a while, and he's one of the few people that if he does think I'm crazy, he doesn't say so. And he's got a good SwineWeb's a good place where, like, for me, when I'm looking for information about what's going on in the hog business, that's one of the places that I go. So anyway, I just wanted to.
Any idea on a podcast?
Yeah, I've done a couple of spots with him where he needed a talking head to say, oh yeah, what. No, he's asked me my honest opinion, and I did a little podcast for him just last week probably. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's one of those guys that I can talk to that I feel like he is somewhat interested in my point of view.
So go check out SwineWeb to listen to Dad's podcast.
Yeah, it's
or listen to everything that he's got on there. It's good stuff. And
they post our videos on their Swine TV, I think. So we're on there. In fact, we were ours and the one with Michael Hansen from Barn Talk, which is a friend of the Barn Tools, is a sponsor of the YouTube channel. But we were both on there at the same time, so we were in good company. Anyway, so markets. For the close yesterday, corn was $6.18, and that's in Muscatine. But locally, everything's kind of taken a little bit of hit. $5.95 is about as high as you're going to find anywhere local. I don't know what the close is for today, but anyway. Soybeans, $13.33 at Muscatine and $13.06 local. Hogs, we rotated into a new month, so they've dropped. We're $88. I mean, the last time we shot, we were 103 on the futures, but the closest future month is 88. But I think we're in the same pattern. Weights aren't going up. The slaughter keeps going down. I don't think that we're going to have a problem with demand. Cattle, 124. It just stays where it is. Bitcoin's had a nice run. In fact, I just checked it, and right at about 49,000.
It's about to hit 50.
It's going to
go crazy when it's at past 50.
There's a psychological ceiling on it at 50.
We've stayed in we stayed in. We've been telling people time in the market on that.
Yeah.
We've stayed in when it went to 30. What was the low on that?
28.
28.
I think.
It was down all the way to 28. Now look where it's came.
Yeah.
It came all the way back, and it's going to keep going.
Well, we hope we don't have to watch it go to 70 and then watch it go to 20 again. It'd be nice if it
Now,
finds its
don't listen to
equilibrium.
me. This isn't financial advice. We always tell you guys this. This is just what I tell myself to make myself feel better about my decision.
This isn't financial advice, but if you need help rationalizing poor decisions, we're your guys because we're pros at that. I rationalize so much stuff, it's ridiculous. I'll give you the Ethereum price, 3,200. So
That's coming up.
All the crypto kind of is running up. Bitcoin's the big dog, but Ethereum had a hard fork or whatever, and they're actually the way their mining system. Air quotes mining, the way it works, they're actually burning up part of the supply of Ethereum, which makes it a little more scarce. And that's been driving the price up. Tesla had a good week. They had a bad week, and then they had a good week. And they're back. A week ago we were 700, and then we went way down because the National Highway Transit Safety gulag, communist, whatever you want to call it, they opened an investigation because they want to save us from ourselves, and that dropped the price. But then they had their AI day,
And I think people kind of shit their pants a little bit with what happened with that.
Yeah, I think they did. There was a lot of people that their mind was blown.
Tesla bot.
Yeah, the Tesla bot.
If you haven't seen that, I would strongly recommend go check that out.
Well, I think
It's pretty insane.
I think the takeaway from that was anybody that's valuing Tesla as an automotive company, you shouldn't, because they make cars, but beyond that,
a little piece of the pie.
right? They're a technology company just like Apple, and the amount of computing power they have, 1.1 teraflops is what Dojo is going to run. Nobody has that. Google doesn't have that. Nobody's got that. The amount of calculations and the amount of AI that they're going to have at their hands, it's going to be pretty impressive, and they're going to do some crazy stuff with it. So anyway, and new to the list, I thought I'd throw Square in there.
Yeah, nice. I talked about this last podcast. Throw Square in there a little bit. I mean, it's not Tesla, but
so Square,
I'm pretty bullish on.
You've heard us. We're pretty bullish on Square. It's a disruptive technology in the financial business, and that stock hasn't really gone anywhere of late. It's near its high, and it got up 170 something, but it's been floating around 160. So anyway, our guest today is Micah Roberts. And so this episode kind of came together quick because I, like a lot of you, we're all sitting out there and we've seen the news and we've seen what's going on, and you just got to ask yourself, like, what in the hell is going on with this Afghanistan thing? And Mike is a friend of mine. He's a veteran of both the Iraq and the Afghan war. He's a financial planner, father of 4, and arguably he's a better fantasy football commissioner than our real football commissioner.
For the NFL.
What's his name?
Roger Goodell.
Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
And
I'd say so.
I think he is. I'm not a big fan of Roger, actually, but I am a fan of Micah. And he's also a very large man. He's a large man. I was going to make some smart comment about what size of hat he has on, but we'll just leave it. He's an all-around good guy, friend of the show. Welcome, Micah.
Welcome to Barn Talk.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. And yeah, it's not arguable. I am a better commissioner.
Yes.
Yes.
And anytime I hear, he's a large man, I just think fat jokes. So I appreciate that. This will be a short one.
No,
I wouldn't call you that. You're fit. Svelte.
You're a fit guy.
Svelte.
Fluff. There's a little fluff there.
Fluffy?
Yeah.
Well,
Hey,
you're entitled.
The dad bod's in, so
You're entitled.
I'm all over it.
yeah, you're all over it.
In the age of entitlement, you're entitled. You've put in your time. You've hiked all over God's green earth carrying how many pounds of crap on your back. You know what? You're entitled to carry a little extra if you want.
I think
give you a
everybody's
pass.
entitled. Isn't that the thing?
Well, we are all entitled,
Right,
but I
yeah.
feel like you're
Just a little
legit.
more. Just a
You're
little more.
legit.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah, I'd just touch on Dad's point a little bit. I just think everyone is kind of wondering, what the hell's going on. And we wanted to really get a veteran's perspective on things because, they've seen things that we haven't, and they've, lived it more than we've ever lived it. So I think it's really important that people should hear this message.
Well, let's get a little background. So people, tell us a little bit about yourself, and how you decided you wanted to get in, what branch of service you were in. Just kind of give us your backstory of how you got involved.
I'm going to have a little bit of an icebreaker.
Ooh.
Well, you do have anytime you have a veteran around, there's got to be a little bit of.
Yeah, you just go ahead and ask me whenever you want one. I give you
It could be Pepsi.
Yeah,
it could be.
We're not saying it is.
Totally Pepsi, folks.
So yeah, man, there's a lot of different factors I think that went into me making that decision to join up. As a kid, it was GI Joes and playing war with my buddies. That's all I did. Mm-hmm. Between castrating pigs and docking sheep tails, but. And my dad being a Vietnam veteran, a little bit of that, make dad proud kind of thing. Yep. I was old, relatively speaking, when I joined. I was 24. So, out of high school, been to college, ran a little bit of a business in Tennessee. Didn't do very well.
Still? Did you have a still?
Well, no, actually I did window washing.
Nice.
So it was through I was a subcontractor through another company, but at one point I had every Starbucks in the state of Tennessee.
Wow.
So you'd go and you'd power wash their drive-through and wash the windows. And that company, they ended up losing their national contract. And anyway, so, but really, not to get, nobody wants my entire life story, but I don't even want to hear it. But really kind of ended up in I guess I'd say just a really dark place. That business has kind of gone away, and I wasn't, I had this plan growing up of what I was going to do and what I was going to be. And it all just kind of fell apart. Yep. So, at that point it was where am I going to find purpose? Where am I going to find, my why kind of thing. And I think what pushed me over at that point, I moved back to Iowa. I think what pushed me over the edge was I went to Dan Sesker's funeral. So Sergeant Sesker, he was in my brother's unit at the time, and he got attached to, I don't remember if it's Alpha Troop or Charlie Troop. Anyway, he got attached and went to Iraq in 2006. And died in a IED explosion. So I went to his funeral, and it was kind of a, man, I don't know how you put that. It's like a, I don't know, come to Jesus kind of moment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of, at that point, I'm like, if I'm not doing anything, this is going to sound weird, but it was like, if I'm not doing anything of value with my life at that point, then I either need to find that value or find that purpose, or at least let my death mean something, if that was to be the case. So that kind of pushed me over the edge as far as joining. Yeah. And I don't know, I imagine you ask 100 different veterans why they joined. You get 100 different answers.
Sure.
I tend to believe that it comes down to finding that purpose. Because I think a lot of times you get that whole elitist mindset of, well, it's because they didn't have options, or because they were poor and middle class, or because blah, 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 not smart enough to go to college, that kind of thing, which is complete BS. But I think it's a way for a lot of young men and women to find purpose. Mm-hmm. And it be attached to something bigger than yourself. Yep. And I think that's so important. I think especially in today's society.
Yeah, and I think we've got a bigger problem than that today than even. Mm-hmm. So that would have been what year? 2006. I think nothing's changed. If anything, I feel like that there's more people today that don't feel like they have. Like they're all
looking for something,
looking for something.
Purpose.
Yeah.
I'd agree. And I mean, I have some buddies that joined up. My buddies Thomas and Sean Zimmer. They're good. They're good guys. Their dad was in the military, and I think it was that kind of same thing. They were looking for something more than themselves, and their dad did it, and they've enjoyed it so far. So,
and they're exactly the kind of people that I want in the military. I sleep better at night knowing that those two are in the military because I know that they'll do what needs to be done.
That's right.
Not everybody's like that.
Not everybody's like that, but there's...
Yeah, and with that, I think with that purpose, it's like, when we look at, especially with the rise of social media, where everything is so inwardly focused and everything's me and everything's what I need and what I want, or that person has this and I don't, therefore they're evil. That whole kind of thing. It's like everything is so me focused. It goes from not only social media, you get into churches, you get into where everything is just, how does this help me? And so when you find that purpose or attach yourself to something bigger, and then you leave the military, I think that's where we're seeing, I think a big part of it is those 22 suicides a day.
Yeah.
It's because now that purpose is gone.
Yep.
It's not always, not that this doesn't play a factor, but it's not always the because of what I've seen or what I've done or et cetera, et cetera. I think a lot of it is just, now what?
You don't have that purpose to fill the void. Like there's a void there.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, not for everybody, but and that's when you've lived and breathed it, and you've had that camaraderie, and you've had a singular focus. Everybody's got a singular focus.
And I mean, that's one of the most, like, I bet that's one of the most fulfilling duties that you could do to have a purpose. Like, there's nothing probably that could top that. I mean, I feel pretty fulfilled being a farmer, but serving the country and doing your duty, that's the highest you can be as far as feeling fulfilled, I think. I mean, I wasn't in it, but that's what I see from the outside anyway.
I don't even know if you realize it when you're in.
Right.
You
probably more so a little bit because you were a little older. I feel like a lot of guys that go in, they're right out of high school, or you're just soaking it all in, and you haven't had the time to. I think that this goes with a lot of things, but we talk about it on here. The ability to look backwards. Once you've lived long enough that you can look backwards a little bit. I mean, you can make a lot of
realizations.
Yeah, right.
You're wise.
Yeah, you can kind of see things that you didn't see when you were in it. So I bet being the age that you maybe were a little more aware.
Yeah, I think so. I was already the old guy. You have officers and, NCOs that are younger than you, and it was an interesting dynamic. That's for sure. But and so I think that really is what drove me to make, to get in was, let me find that purpose. Let me, and again, I think my dad played a bigger role in that than maybe I even realize, or he even knows. He never pushed it.
Right.
I think his time in Vietnam, you want to, the thing that what those guys went through, it's just incredible.
Yep.
And I think, in their transition home, there was no home, there was no welcome home.
Yeah.
You're getting spit on in the airport, and like it's their fault. It's like, the government's going to screw things up, but it's your fault that they did.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't really.
No. Yeah, that was for sure. What branch and what unit were you a part of?
Yeah, so all of that being said, and I joined the National Guard. So there was a story to that, though. So my brother was in the Guard, and he was a cavalry officer in the U.S. Army. And I knew through the grapevine and through some of the things that he was aware of that unit that I joined was deploying. And so I joined in 2006, went to OSIT, which is your basic training AIT. It was all put together, 17 weeks. School of Hard Knocks. So Fort Knox.
Yep.
And so I knew they were deploying.
You wanted to know that you were going to go.
That's what I wanted to do. You know, and that let's see, we left in 2007, so a little less than a year after I joined. And in an odd way, I think Afghanistan, the next deployment was just kind of a bonus in a weird way. I know that sounds messed up, but so yeah, Army, 113th Cav out of Des Moines.
What was your kind of like your specialty? Like what?
What was that major pain?
Yeah.
Killing's my business. And business. So I was a cavalry scout. So in a linear battlefield or a normal war,
yep.
You know, our job would be to scout for the armor division or for the tanks. You know, so you kind of snoop and poop. You know, get up and find the enemy. You know, make sure. You know, there's even things like your radius of a curve, things like that we had to know as far as getting tanks to where they needed to be to engage the enemy. So that was our specialty. It was like infantry, only better because we knew a lot more, which,
yeah,
of course, that's the case.
Yep, right, exactly.
I got to throw a little shade.
No, that's okay.
Well, here's a question that you can throw a lot of shade at. What's the best branch in the military?
Well,
and what's if you don't mind answering, what's the worst, quote unquote, or one that you're a little like, oh, those guys don't do as much?
What's the branch that's least respected in the military among military people?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the Coast Guard's got to be the best, right? I mean, I don't even know what they do.
That's true.
I guess they guard the coast. I guess that's kind of in the name.
I thought they just fished.
Well, that's part of it.
Fish out there.
What are you going to do when you're sitting out there?
Yeah,
you're on the boat.
I don't know.
Might as well do a little fishing while you're out there. I think probably the least respected is probably the Air Force.
That's not that. I knew you were going to say that.
You know what I think? I think part of it is unless you're a pararescue jumper, that's a whole nother.
Right.
Those guys are nuts.
Yeah.
I think part of it is because, you know, they go to their training and it's like their tents are air conditioned. And it's like, what? The chair force, right? It's like, what? There's no roughing it there. Yep. I think the most respected is probably the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
You know, just from their combat abilities, the training that they go through. They're not real bright, but they get stuff done.
Yeah. Well, and they get sent. They get sent everywhere.
Tip of the spear.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Air Force, it's so funny because
you got a good story about this.
Well, so a friend of mine, he's not going to care if I use his name. So Aaron Hoffert.
Yeah.
So Aaron always would tell the story about when they were getting ready to deploy, they went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and every morning they would get up, or not every morning, but when they had to do their live fire, they would get up and they would road march, however far it was, out to where they had this obstacle course set up where they had to work through it. And on their way out there, these tour buses would pass them. And the first day that they went, they're like, what the hell is a tour bus doing out here in the middle of nowhere? And they get there, and here is all these Air Force guys that had to do this before they went over. And they're all sitting on the bus napping. Some of them are watching cartoons on the TVs, and it's, it's early morning, so it's 45, 50 degrees. They're all out there cold, huddled up, and then they run their simulation, and they come back, and the Air Force guys, they get off, they give them all their stuff, they run it, they come back, get back on the bus, start the bus up, And he said, and then he always talks about when he was deployed in Iraq that they were in a transportation group where they were hauling all kinds of stuff. And anyway, they had to haul stuff into Saddam's palace. What next? Maybe it's close to the airport. I guess I can't remember exactly.
Camp Victory, probably.
Anyway, but it was the Air Force Base, and they pull in there, and they're like, "There's guys playing tennis," because it was this lavish deal, and there's all these Air Force guys, and they're sitting by the pool, kicking it up, and he goes, "That's when it really hit home that I was in the wrong branch." But anyway,
yeah, and I think they're hated because we're all just jealous.
Well, and that's what he said.
It's like the air. You get their food's better.
Yeah. Their
facilities are better. They don't actually have to do things that are hard. physically most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm throwing a lot.
They're mentally sharp individuals. My dad was an Air Force,
yes, they are.
Army Air Corps. A lot of respect for the Air Force, and they have to be. They're responsible for some very expensive equipment, and they do. Yeah, I mean, it's just fun to dig on everybody.
Yeah, I'll throw a caveat on that. I mean, I think anybody who there's a certain amount of respect I think owed. Anybody who puts on that uniform, whatever branch it is, they're doing their duty, they're doing their job. We can't do it without everybody. And we always, like as a cavalryman or as a Cav Scout, with our black Stetsons and our spurs, we're going to make fun of everybody because nobody's as good as us. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Particularly, I can't even talk. I think my tongue is actually growing as I get older. It's like it doesn't fit in my mouth anymore. Anyway, but especially infantry, because they think they're
underrated.
No, they think they're overrated. Well, they are overrated. No, they think they're underrated. Yeah.
Yeah. So from the time you joined up, you said you had about 17 weeks of like back-to-back training. And then once you got through that, how long did it take before you got deployed?
I got out of training, I want to say it was late November, early December 2006, and we deployed June or July 2007.
Okay.
So 7 months, 8 months.
Yeah. How long of a process is it to get over there?
So you always have your, especially for the guard, but you have your pre-mob. And so really out of your 12-month deployment, almost, was it 2 months, I guess it is, where you go and you pre-mob. So you try to fit in all the training that the regular or full-time Army does. You try to fit all that in like a 2.5 month period. So it takes, by the time you actually deploy to where you're actually boots on the ground, 2.5 months or so.
So you got over there in July?
Yeah, August 2007.
Is that
a beautiful in Iraq 2007?
Beautiful time to get over there?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
It's glorious.
So
It's a dry heat though.
Right. I figured that was coming. So what were your impressions like when you got there?
What was your first, what the fuck did I get myself into?
Yeah, like when did that hit you and you're like, oh boy, or did it?
It really didn't. Like, I don't think I don't know if it was just maybe because I was older or whatnot, but I really didn't get into that place of it was like, oh man, I made a huge mistake. Because it's, I guess it just resolved myself to, this is what I chose to do. This is what I wanted to do. This is exactly where I wanted to be at that point. So I never really had that moment. There were some moments of, the hell are you doing? But not so much the.
It's a very good narcissistic answer there.
A little bit. Not everybody's cut out for that.
No, that's true.
They're there. They're just
true.
not cut out for it.
Yep.
So, but yeah, there's some stories there. But
culture wise, so where did you end up at? Close to Baghdad? Is that right?
Yeah. So we went. So our deployment to Iraq, we didn't do anything that we were actually trained to do, or what our actual job or specialty was. We were tasked with personal security for dignitaries. Oh, wow. Which seems like an MP job to me, military police, but somehow we got it. And so, if anybody from, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs at that point, Admiral Mullen, Condoleezza Rice, Secretary of State, John McCain, those types of people would come over, then we'd be tasked with their security. Okay. So we did a lot of, which was really neat, we did a lot of joint missions with like State Department, Blackwater. When we first got to Iraq, we spent a week, maybe 2 weeks with Blackwater, as they trained us on those different, because that's what they did. That's what they were contracted to do. And they're all former Spec Ops guys and SEALs, and man, high speed.
That's cool.
High speed, man. That'll humble you.
I bet it will.
Especially for when you come out of basic training at AIT, you think you're your Superman, your Rambo.
Yeah.
That doesn't really wear off for a while. It wore off pretty quick. Once we got around those guys, I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. This is absurd.
That's crazy.
So maybe that would be what did I get myself into?
Sure.
But learned a lot from them. Ran some joint missions with them, like I said. So that was a neat experience. And got to meet a bunch of people and drive them around. We had our up armored Humvees, obviously, but then we had the up armored SUVs. So we'd go from like Camp Victory to the Green Zone where the embassy was. Really compared to Afghan, pretty cush.
Yeah.
We did have the air conditioning in our huges.
Yeah, right.
So I can't make fun of the Air Force too much.
When you were over there, did you have much exposure to I would say the citizenry that weren't, I guess, hostile as far as like the culture goes?
Yeah, a little bit, especially around the Green Zone, because that was supposed to be, kind of your safe zone. And Iraqis, and just my opinion, my impression, they were a lot more, I guess, westernized than what we found in Afghanistan. I think the average person there wanted to run their business, make some money, take care of their family. We didn't get into a lot of the rural areas in Iraq, so I can't speak to that. We were mostly in urban centers, which I'm sure makes a difference. But, it seemed like they were just a lot more willing to, we just want to move forward. And which was, I think, a little bit different than what Afghanistan was.
So you were there, 12-month deployment. You get back. Then what happens?
Yeah. So, I was a dad all of a sudden. So when I left, when I left for Iraq, I was essentially, I had a girlfriend.
Yep.
But I was essentially single on my own. I come back and she'd gotten pregnant before I left.
Yeah,
just in case there's any questions.
You got to throw that in there.
That makes the relationship a little stronger.
A little bit. So my Keely, she's 13 now. So she was born November 2007. And I remember how I was on the phone, hearing the first cry, that kind of thing. She was 2 months old when I met her. Came home on leave. So I came home to a whole different world.
Dynamic.
My wife or girlfriend at the time, but my wife had a daughter from a previous relationship, which I've since adopted, which is pretty awesome. But we're taking her to college next week. That's how fast time goes.
Yep, that's right.
So it's just a different dynamic. So I came back, because it was guard, then it's like, well, go get a job. I actually did road construction for a while. I've done a little bit of everything.
Yeah. That's why you're so well-rounded.
Is that another fat joke? I knew it. I knew that was coming. So that was a little bit different. I actually I put myself through the police academy in Des Moines. So that was another 18 weeks that I was gone. Out of the 6 years that I was in the National Guard, I think I was gone about 4 of them total through different trainings, and some of it was my own volunteering, that kind of thing. But I worked some road construction and.
Yeah, so you did that. You went to police academy. Mm-hmm. So were you essentially? So you stayed in. You didn't get out. You still were. You still were in the Guard, and so then that unit came up to get deployed again.
Yep.
To go to Afghanistan this time.
Yep. So that would have been 2010.
So what did you think when that call came? Were you like, okay?
Were you ready to like jump back into that, or were you like, I have kid?
Well, I guess did you feel like once you'd been and gotten back, did you kind of like check that off the list? And did you think you were going to get redeployed?
No, not initially.
Yeah.
Like I said, I knew we were going to go to Iraq when I joined, but and so Afghanistan wasn't on my radar. And in between So got back 2008 when we got back.
Yep.
And 2010 we deployed. I had another kid.
Yep.
So now I've got 3, right?
Wow.
And so it was a little different just because it was
Harder.
well,
Yeah, you're more attachments.
you know. Now, flip side is I missed a lot of the infancy stage with my kids. So, you know, I'm always like, you know, new parents, I'm like, this is easy.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but if you have a 13-year-old, you're getting it paid back now, because I bet you are really smart.
So,
I just remember when my kids hit that about 13, 14. Boy, the torque
You
curve
just be
just
glad.
went.
You just be glad you didn't have any daughters.
I am thankful of that.
He's got a
13-year-old daughter,
Yeah.
right?
18 and 13.
18 and 13.
Yeah. And an 8-year-old daughter and then a
he's got a badge.
11-year-old son.
That son, he's going to have it made, because you're going to be like, son, your problems pale in comparison.
He's got a badge bigger than yours, because daughters, I've
Yep.
heard. I'm no parent, but I've heard you better have some patience.
I'm trying to think if they're going to listen to this or not. No, they're great. They're absolutely great.
No, they all are.
However, there's some struggles there.
There's some-
but
Yep.
anyway, so yeah, it was a little harder, you know, that second deployment leave, and I think it was harder on my wife. You know, I don't think the spouse is the ones who stay home, because it's a whole different experience there, because you know, their life stays the same minus you.
To help.
Whereas you're out, you know, you're focused on what you're doing, and you know, you don't, at least for me, it's not that you don't think about home, it's not that you don't miss it, but it's kind of in the background.
Right.
Right.
And so it's you know, what they go through is,
Yeah, because you have your job that you're singularly focused on. You're not worried about if the car breaks down, the water heater breaks, the kids get sick, I got to go to work, babysitter doesn't show up, or grandma can't walk. All that stuff that you have to do, you don't have nobody to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody to help.
And I would say too, you know, I'm fortunate because she never bothered me with those things, because she knew I couldn't do anything about it anyway. You know, we were fortunate to have people around that would help her take care of those things, and you know, my family and church communities, things like that. But you know, so I would say if there's anybody who's thinking about being a military spouse and your spouse is deployed, don't bother them with that stuff, because that's just it's a distraction. It adds to the stress level, and they can't do anything about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It probably makes you feel a little guilty being there while you're putting the complaint, you know, not complaints, but putting those responsibilities on him and talking about it. And it's like, well, or her, or whatever, you know.
Right.
It's like, you got to be focused here.
Yeah. So pretty fortunate, but yeah, it was certainly different the second time around.
When that call came in that you were going to get deployed, what was the sentiment among the guys that you were with? In other words, what did you all think about what was going on in Afghanistan? Like, what was your feelings about it?
Honestly, I think a lot of it was a little bit of excitement to go again.
Yep.
You know, one thing about, and I know I'm generalizing a little bit, but one thing about soldiers is the politics of it. You really don't think about it.
No.
You know, and it's like, when I left for Afghanistan, I didn't really care at all of why, right?
Right.
It's this is what I'm going to go do because this is what I do.
Yep.
It wasn't, I can't wait to be a freedom fighter for these people, or,
Yeah.
you know, let's get them, you know, maybe they'll become a democracy, or, you know, I don't care about that. I care about, I want to know that I'm doing my job well.
I'm doing my country well.
Yeah. And my buddies are coming home.
Yep.
And that's really when you're there, all of that goes out the window.
Yep.
And it's the guy next to me.
Yep.
And that's what matters.
Same kind of ramp up. Did you have like 2 months of training to get you up to speed on what you were supposed to be doing over there, or did they?
Yeah. So I don't know how I'm still married, because Because I was like, well, we're doing all this pre-mobilization stuff in Des Moines, before we actually go to the same thing. You go for the 2.5 months, but there's a bunch to do before that. And I was like, I'll do that. So I spent my weeks from February 2010 until we deployed. I spent my weeks in Des Moines, just come home on the weekend. So I don't know. She's a trooper.
She is a trooper.
My Lord. So I'm gonna have to buy her some jewelry after this or something. So did that just at the unit there in Des Moines, help get things ready and whatnot. And then we went to NTC, so National Training Center in, I don't know, somewhere in California for 2 weeks, kind of desert training, that kind of thing. But ultimately it was about 2.5 months, and then before we were boots on the ground.
So when you get to Afghanistan, you'd been in Iraq. Mm-hmm. I guess, did you feel like did you think that it was going to be a similar experience, or did you know that this is a totally different culture and terrain and all that?
Yeah, culture wise, and they do a good job. The military does a fairly good job at trying to prepare you a little bit for the culture, and there's different dialects, different customs, different you don't want to offend anyone,
right?
So yeah, I think there was an expectation that it was going to be a little different. It was a completely different mission from what we had in Iraq. We had our own battle space. You're responsible for this chunk of land. So there was a different expectation there. I think I was a little surprised, and I guess it's just my naivety, but did I say that right? Naivety?
Don't ask us.
Right.
I'll go with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you said all around smart guy, and I'm proving that wrong here. But, so, the people there, the culture there, I think are completely different than what we found in Iraq. They're still living in mud huts, and it's like
tribal.
Yeah, very. And, yeah, certainly different.
Not a lot of people don't travel a lot. In other words, like if you're born here, you don't decide I'm going to pick up and move over here.
Right. Yeah.
You stay.
Yeah.
You've been there for however many generations, and your dad your 5X grandpa was a goat herder, and you're going to be a goat herder too, or you're going to make clay pots, or you're going to do, I don't know what they do.
Yeah. You're fifth generation there. Your goats are 5th generation. It's all just a generational thing.
So I didn't realize until I started looking into it a little bit. Afghanistan, almost one of the constants of its existence is other people coming in trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how many people had tried to fix it. I mean, I remember the Russians toiling away in there for I don't know how many years and finally giving up, which we were encouraging. The U.S. was meddling in that big time, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But I didn't know that the British had been in there. I think the Turks might have been in there at one point. So I guess I don't know why. Why is that? Like, what is it about that country that makes it to where for one, I don't know why everybody wants to go in there, other than a lot of bad people apparently came out of there. I mean, the narrative that everybody was spoon-fed. I mean, 9/11 happens, and we're in America. We want to fix things, and somebody's got to answer for all this. And I'm not really pointing fingers at everybody, because I think everybody felt the same way. I think we were probably about the most united as a country in thought as we have been in my generation.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say my generation, I think no one should stand up and talk about their kind of, I mean, you can have an opinion, but you didn't live that time where that did happen. And people seem to really forget, I think, that's why we went over there. I mean, we were so united, and that is the reason why we went over there. You weren't there. You didn't feel the camaraderie of America.
The narrative was, we're going to go to Afghanistan because we're going to stop those people there so we don't have to have that fight here. That was the That was the long and short of it.
Yeah.
But when you get over there, and you may not be able to speak to this because, like you said, when you're singularly focused on your mission, there's not much time to think about
The why and everything.
the why and the political this and that. But did you get a feeling? I guess what was your feeling while you were there doing your mission? Can we complete this mission?
I don't know how much while you're there, but certainly a lot of time to think about it after.
Yeah.
No, would be the short answer, in my opinion.
All right, hit the button.
Right. That's it. I don't, like, what was the end goal? I still don't know.
Right.
Is it not to take their natural resources, or we would have done that.
Right.
It's like the whole war for oil thing in Iraq. Well, maybe a part of it, but we didn't take it.
Yeah.
Like if we're gonna go in there and take over a country, at least take their stuff. If that is supposedly the reason, or the conspiratorial reason, right? So no, when you have people, and I think the reason why it's an empire killer, right?
Yeah.
Afghanistan is these people, when it takes, well, we talked about like the generations and they've been there forever, and they don't look at time, I don't think, the same way that we do. It's a long game. It's like, well, yeah, I might not be able to get you out of my country, so to speak, but my grandkids will, and that we'll just work towards that. It's not, everything is, the time frame is so extended. Like the Taliban sat fairly quiet, right? For what, 20 years?
Yeah, right.
And as soon as it was time, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
So I think the outcome that we're seeing as far as the Taliban regaining control, that was always going to happen. Whether we left within the first year or whether we left 15 years from now, it's going to, same outcome, which is unfortunate.
Right.
In retrospect, you go in there, we toppled their government in 3 months?
Yep.
With, I don't know, 30 spec ops guys or whatever it was. If we want to send a message to where, if you're going to punch us in the face, be prepared.
Right.
Great. But why do we stay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think that's a really good point you brought up with time. I listened to a podcast the other day, and they said that, China, Middle East, other countries have such a different outlook on time than we do as Americans. We're so short-term thinking, and we elect new people every 4 years. It's just like and you brought up a really good point in the last podcast. You elect people and then they want to make change right away because they feel obligated to do so, when maybe they don't need to make change, but that's their job. So they think, I got to pass some stuff.
Yep.
Well, they over there,
it's generational.
China, and you think, China, you look at China, it's like they ethically don't care really what they're doing. They know they want to take over. They want to accomplish something. They have a goal in mind. They don't care how long it takes. They're going to go for it. And they don't care about the short-term things of it. And I think it's the same thing with the Middle East.
China's true to a point. The thing that I think most people don't, I won't get off very far, but the thing that most people don't realize about China, and there's a guy named, I'm going to slaughter his name, but I think his name is Peter Zion. I think his name is pronounced Zion, maybe. I can't remember. Anyway, he's got a series of books out. He's actually from Iowa. I'd love to get him on here, but he's a student of history, but he's also a big student of demographics and geography. And I think what a lot of people don't realize about China is, when we think of China, we think of the Chinese people, and we think that they are all the same. And they are not. There's like 35 different ethnic groups within China, and the whole country is ruled by one. And their number one priority, the reason you could say that, well, they don't really care, they're not real big on worker safety, and everybody's a number, and, if we're going to control population or this or that. But that's true to a point. But their number one priority, above everything else, is that the ruling minority stays the ruling minority. And the reason they're so big on all of the technology as far as keeping track of everybody and the money supply and all that, and keeping the money within China, is to keep them in power. But you're right, they think generationally. And the Middle East, that's why
if they didn't think generationally, they wouldn't care about that ethical stuff as far as you only have one child or whatever, and the work, they would care more about the workers, but they don't because they know they're trying to expand their nation. They're trying to do whatever they can, stay in power and expand.
They want to be the next empire.
Yeah, they want to be the next empire.
And power, if you have power, you always want to keep it. I mean, it's not just you have the ruling minority there, but then you have not to turn this into, but you have I'll say the elitist class or the political class here.
Oh, 100%.
That's exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Power's a drug.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, if you can choose wealth or power, choose power.
Yeah.
Right.
Because wealth is fleeting, and if you don't have power, you won't have wealth very long.
I mean, if you have power, you can get wealth pretty fast. I mean,
Right. So,
for people that don't understand how kind of the geography is, the vast majority, I think I'm right in this. So the vast majority of Afghanistan is very rugged. So as far as cities go, when we hear Kabul on the, how big a city is that?
I don't know. Never went.
Okay. All right.
We had, around Bagram, you have the Bagram Air Base. Man, you say city, or let's say population center. It's just such a different, from my experience, just such a different concept, because it looks like a third world country.
Yeah.
So even if you have a city, it's still,
you just have a lot of markets where people go to try to get stuff, and other than that, it's a lot of single family dwelling, or I don't know. Is there much for 2-3 story buildings, or is it mostly?
Not that I saw. Yeah, and we spent most of our time was in the mountain regions.
Yeah.
So I never, again, drastic difference from Iraq. Our mission in Iraq and our mission in Afghanistan was all urban center and mountains.
And the Taliban. So you got there when did you get there?
2010.
What time of year?
Summer.
Yeah, and so then were you there through the following spring? So winter, they don't. So one of the stories is the Taliban in the wintertime, they're like, we don't want to play in the winter. So we just go up the mountains and hang out till spring, because winter's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And they don't want to engage anybody, which
Right.
I always thought that was kind of odd, because when we think about, you think about war, well, like I think about World War II, they fought through the winter. There's some really
Russians.
Yeah, I mean, the winter was brutal, but they tried to keep fighting. And in this situation, the Taliban, I think we wanted to fight, but the Taliban was like, not interested.
We'd have an advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, we had every technology, weapons.
Yeah.
We had more of an advantage on them anyway. They were already at a disadvantage, so had that on top of it, they were like, "Well, screw that. We're not gonna try and get them when it's the wintertime."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So when you get summer, spring, just always a lot more activity.
Yeah.
During those times. Not that there's never anything going on in the winter, but it's pretty
A lot
muted.
less.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got out in the spring of 11,
Summer. Yeah.
summer of 11, and you come home, and then did you stay in the Guard?
So I only had a year left. It's a 6-year contract. So I did for another 12 months, 11 months, something like that.
So this time when you came back, was the adjustment harder or easier?
I think it was easier because I knew I was done.
Yeah.
I think somewhere in Afghanistan, and that whole, I'm done running around with a gun chasing a bad guy.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was really the biggest transition was, transitioning into my career now. We had another kid in 2012. So, not long after we got back. So there was just a lot going on with a career change and coming out of the military, and you still have that struggle. I think probably more so that struggle with, okay, what's my purpose now?
Right.
I think I had more of a struggle the second time with that aspect of it. Again, because I knew I was done. I wasn't going to sign up again.
Right.
So that was a little harder. Now, fortunately, I think I certainly found my purpose now, found it then, but what my purpose is now. So, pretty fortunate in that case, but.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Obviously today you're a financial planner.
Right.
So how did you get, you didn't come back and go, I'm going to fire up this window cleaning deal again. Like, what drew you to that? Or did somebody point you in that direction?
Well, sheep, right?
Yes, I do know sheep.
My brother-in-law, his nickname was Sheep in high school, I guess. Yep. He's a financial planner with the firm that I ultimately joined. And he had been on me for a while. And a lot of what drew me to that was, ultimately being able to help people reach their financial goals and to have the right behaviors to be able to do that. And sitting in an office is a lot better than
squatting on a rock somewhere.
Yeah. So as much as I'm in the office anyway.
Yeah.
So
never when I need you.
Yeah. What's the deal with that?
I don't know.
You
go in there.
You don't really need me though.
She lets me go in though and sit on your desk.
Does she?
You seen that scene out of Step Brothers where they're talking about the drum set?
Yeah.
Think about that the next time you put your arms on your desk.
I thought it smelled weird.
Oh my God.
Well, she's fired, so that's good. Nice job.
Sorry, Lindsay.
I blame that on you.
Sorry.
So no, and as far as the investment world or financial planning, I opened my first investment account when I was 12. Well, I say I did. Dad did it for me. I had Stein Rowe Young Investors Fund. It had Pepsi and Nike and Coke and
those cool stuff.
Yeah, those types of companies, which I thought was really cool until I realized that Dad decided he was going to give me an allowance, but then take half of it. So I got like
management fee.
Yeah, basically. I learned young, so I get like $10, and then I would give him $5, and he would put that into that Stein Rowe Young Investors Fund. And then when I started, baling hay or castrating things like that, well, where's half your pay, right? So let's get that put in there. And man, that just drove me nuts. I hated it until I was older.
Yeah,
and I thought, oh, there's money there. There's more money than I put in. Hi, pup.
We have a special guest here.
For those that don't know, the farm dog Duke just decided that he
wanted to come join the show.
Yep, he wants to be.
We put in a spiral staircase because we had an old ladder that just sat here, and we were like, we don't really want that liability of someone falling or anything. I mean, that's what we were joking about, but he was a little timid to come up the steps and go down the steps, but now I think he's figured it out.
Yeah, I carried him up here the first time, and he wasn't having it, and then I had to carry him down. And then this morning we were getting ready, and just randomly, he just decided that, well, must be okay, so he came up. But he'd gone back down, but anyway, we'll have to see whether... Okay, so... I had more respect for you if you would have told me you had some kind of an epiphany to go down that financial advisor instead of just sheep telling you that it was a good idea, because your stock went down a little bit.
Well, it wasn't real high to begin with.
Well, that's fine. But so anyway, how long of a process was that? When did you start down that road when you got back?
So it was pretty quick. I think within 2 months I had applied. and their hiring process takes forever.
Yep.
Which it should.
Yeah.
And then their training, 6 months or so. You have to pass your Series 7, Series 66, all the different regulatory exams. So that's a pretty long process. I think I was officially on duty, let's say, spring 2012.
Yeah.
So it was a 9 month process.
So here we are. So we're basically 9 years. 9 years since you left Afghanistan. Oh no, you're 10 years.
10 years,
You got out in 2011, and you're like a lot of us. That went on, but it drew down, and it got to just be where you barely even heard anything about it. We knew we still had troops over there. We knew that we were running around looking for bad guys and trying to keep the status quo. But you really got lulled into everybody. I mean, I know I just kind of knew that it was never going to be. You're never going to wake up one day and Afghanistan was going to have, a Starbucks on a corner of wherever little city it was. But at the same time, you kind of felt like, well, they got, the U.S. government's got it under control, and we're winning the hearts and minds, and these people are figuring out that, they can be free. Because, and this is something that we should probably touch on, but, I think one of the biggest travesties of this is we've been there 20 years. There is a whole generation of young women in Afghanistan that have grown up being able to walk the streets in jeans and a sweatshirt, go to school, and, not be covered head to toe in a veil and walk 3 steps behind a man, or not be able to leave the house. And they have got to be just like godsmacked, because the story is that hasn't all happened yet, but I don't think it can be very far behind
BS.
that we're going to go back to what we were. But we're about 10 days from when this all kind of fell apart, maybe 2 weeks. When you saw, when the news broke that basically all of the defense forces that we have spent oodles of money training, and when that all fell apart and the Taliban was basically just walking over the country, what was your feeling about that?
Yeah. So, well, you bring up a great point with a generation of, if it's a 15-year-old girl, she's done nothing different. And it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly for them. So, I guess my feeling was, it wasn't shock, certainly, because I think we touched on that before, where the outcome was always going to be this. The speed at which it happened is a little surprising. And I say the speed, we're looking at it as far as our media, over the last 10 days, 2 weeks. But really since the treaty, let's say, was broken, we were supposed to be out of there withdrawn by May 1st. So really, I think this is if we look at it from May 1st through here, the end of August, that's the time frame. It's not just the last 10 days. So a little, not shocked, kind of figures that would happen. I think the shocking part is how much we've messed this up as far as the withdrawal itself. It's almost like there's a couple different aspects to it. It's, one is the outcome, which not shocking. 2, the actual withdrawal, which is a travesty. And then 3, how do we parse out the feelings as a veteran, of the blood that was shed?
Yeah.
Was it worth it, kind of thing. So really those 3 aspects, and the one, this is going to be the outcome. 2, the fact that we can't figure out that whether the Taliban took over this quickly or not. You're saying, okay, we're going to be gone in September 1st with the new time frame, and you still have 15,000 U.S. citizens, and you didn't think to maybe let's go ahead and start getting them out of here.
Yeah, it seems like a huge misstep by the intelligence. So it's got to be one or the other. Either the intelligence changed and it was very poor, or they had a narrative that they just plain didn't plan for, that they didn't think could happen, or the administration chose to go their own way and not heed. So either they didn't believe the intelligence that they got, or they didn't receive the right intelligence.
Yeah. Or they didn't care and they just were going to do it themselves. I think number three, this is just personal opinion. I think Biden administration, I think Joe Biden wanted the credit for getting them out of Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And because I heard a podcast, and he was working on getting us out of Afghanistan, but there's a certain way to do it. Mm-hmm. Should we do it in the middle of a fighting season when they're coming out of the mountains? Probably not. Should we have done it maybe during the wintertime when they're not as aggressive? That would have been a good way.
Yeah.
I think. And you touched on it a little bit. There's 15. I read a thing that said 10 to 40,000 Americans are left there. Yeah. They don't even know how many Americans are just left there, and they're just there. And they don't even know. Totally rushed. And I think it was... This is my opinion again. I think it was truly. I think Biden wanted the credit.
Well, I think we've seen that before with different administrations where it's whether it's Benghazi or Afghanistan now, where it's I'm going to make political decisions, and boots on the ground or the U.S. citizens are there be damned.
Yeah,
because. That's to me the only explanation. I have a hard time believing that our intelligence community
was that wrong.
Is so jacked up,
right,
that they didn't know the Taliban was coming across the country.
Yep.
Like how I don't even know how that happens.
And it's the history. They fight during this season of the year. This is their peak time to be out and about. So I can't imagine that they would get that wrong. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that, and I want to touch on this because I think you have a little bit of perspective on it, is one of the narratives that is out there is that we were relying on the Afghan forces to step up and buffer this transition. But it seems as though what happened, obviously the president, he fled with, I can't remember how many $1 million, but a lot of press has been that a lot of the commanders were paid off, and they just said, all right, and they let it go. So does that make sense to you? Do you what's when you talk about the culture, when you were over there, did you see how the U.S. did things? Yeah. I guess I'm trying to think of a better way to say it.
Yeah, but I think I know what you're getting at. So, I think for 20 years, we set up a system of, let's give you money for this. Let's give you money for that. Let's pay you for this. Let's pay you. And so, where we'd go into, a shura in a village, or a meeting in a village with the elder, and it was always, what are you going to put in my village? Are you going to, we need money for this, or we need this type of equipment, or we need that. And so we set up, really at this point, a whole generation of Afghanis. And you think about, well, who's most likely to be in the military in Afghanistan? Well, it's young men.
Yep.
So for 20 years, they've seen that, well, I'm for sale, right?
Yep.
So no principles, no, we're doing the right thing. It was always, let's just give you more money. And that way we get what we want. I'll give you this pile of cash, and you tell me where the Taliban are hiding, right? And it may or may not be that the Taliban are actually hiding there, but they already got their cash. And the next time you come, oh, yeah, I've got intel.
Yep.
Give me more money.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if the intel pays off or not. Yep. So the fact that, or the idea that these commanders or even the troops are getting paid off, of course they are.
Yeah.
Because we set that up in their culture. When we went to, and I don't remember if it was Iraq or Afghanistan. I think it was Afghanistan. there was some trainer in one of our classes, in Primo, that said, don't give candy and pens and whatever to the kids, which they always, as soon as you park somewhere, you get out in a village, you're surrounded, and they're trying to get all your stuff, and you give them candy, and it makes their day, and you feel good about it, right? But it was reinforcing the idea that Americans are here to give you something, with nothing in return.
Yep.
Yeah, ultimately. So yeah, I think we set up that whole system.
Yeah, and
we've been doing that for decades. You go back to Russia and Afghanistan, right? I mean, we were funding the Mujahideen.
Yeah, to try to get rid of them.
Yeah, and so you have Afghanistan, this little mountainous dirt patch, let's say, where you have empires, so to speak, or world powers fighting over this patch of land, and I think over time you get really good in your culture at being able to play one side versus the other. And what Afghanis understand, I think, is fear. And so whoever is going to instill the most fear is the one in charge. Well, we stopped doing that a long time ago. So, and if we're pulling out, well, who is there to fear?
Right.
Well, it's going to be the Taliban, because they're going door to door looking for people who helped the U.S. And if we don't get, sorry, I know I'm on a tangent a little bit,
you're
but
good.
If we don't get those people out, our interpreters, the people who helped us, and we just let them go, let the Taliban, put them on video, behead them, kill their families, sell their daughters into sex slavery, which is exactly what's going to happen.
Yep.
What happens the next time?
That's a great point, because one of the first comments that I heard about this that I hadn't thought about is, in the world today, how would you like to be Taiwan? How would you like to be Ukraine? Because if you're sitting there and you're watching that, and the U.S. is telling you, don't worry, we got your back, we're going to be there for you, how much credibility do you have? And if what you're talking about, when that happens, because
it is going to happen.
We've let it go now that best case scenario, they'll be lucky if they can get, I don't know how many of those people they can get out, but you're not going to get anywhere near all of them. And they're going to make that, it'll be a spectacle.
Well, and they're trying to, I've seen on the media, they're sitting down and, having these press conferences, or they're talking to the media, and they're acting like, oh, we're good. We don't want to do anything. We're not hostile right now. But I bet the beheadings have already started. They're just not videoing them.
Honestly, I think they're trolling us.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a thing that said Twitter, they have their own verified Twitter account. The Taliban, a terrorist group, has a Twitter account. Cannot believe it. It's like the media just lets, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get the media.
Yeah. Well, the fact that, are we really at a place, man, maybe I shouldn't go there, but are we really at a place where our biggest concern right now from the UN is whether or not there's going to be educational rights for women under the freaking Taliban? Like, no, there won't be.
Right.
And it's not just, it's worse than that. Like,
way worse.
That's the least of their problems right now, or what's coming. Yeah. Because there's one thing about, we talked about kind of the long game and whatnot. That's a lot of time to get all ramped up and say, oh yeah, revenge is coming.
Well, and that's those cultures. You can be, I will be more than happy to kill your son for what your great grandfather did to my family.
Well, they already hated us. Now they hate us even more.
Well, but I'm talking about the citizenry of Afghanistan. Anybody that is perceived to have not been a supporter is their enemy.
Right.
And as Micah said, the revenge is coming. It doesn't make any sense to just come out guns blazing because there's no need to. We've already ceded everything to them. And I think, and I'm pretty sure that they're smart enough to know the worst thing that they could do right now is something graphic that would get world sentiment turned that we say,
Better
oh,
step
wait a
in.
minute, we better
Yeah.
run some drone strikes and get rid of some of these people or whatever. They're going to wait. My opinion is they're going to wait until it's done. We're gone. And then
It'll happen.
we're going to take care of all of those who have wronged us in some way at some time.
Yeah, and I think that's like you see the stories where they have checkpoints around the Kabul airport, or that they're going door to door making lists. Yeah, they're not getting into the ugly stuff yet.
No.
But they're ready for it.
Yeah, it's coming.
So and here's I guess kind of one of my I'll say fears is that when those videos start leaking of your mass graves, of your beheadings, of your forced genital mutilation on young girls especially, when that stuff starts coming out, the war machine has to eat, right? Not to be all Alex Jones, but
Right.
But the war, when Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex, when I was growing up, I was always like, oh, that's a slander against troops, and it's not.
No.
It's the fact you have your Lockheed Martins and your Halliburtons and your, the Secretary of Defense right now, Austin, was on the board of, was it Halliburton or Lockheed? One of those two.
I don't know.
I don't know, but I know that he's very connected with
absolutely.
with the defense.
So my fear is that we're going to end up going right back in there on a quote unquote humanitarian mission. And then 20 years from now, we're going to be having this discussion about, oh man, we drew down, Taliban took over again.
Yeah. I think I agree with you 100%. I think the only thing that's going to temper that is this was a $2 trillion endeavor, cost over 2,000 American lives, and I don't know how many 100,000 people. And the interest on the debt it's $530 million or billion dollars, $530 billion.
$1 billion, yeah.
And when interest rates, and they printed all that money. They printed all that money out of thin air. And when interest rates were going down, the war actually got cheaper because the interest was lower. Well, today we're getting out. We have this debt, and we're adding to it with all the other stuff we're doing. I think it's going to be pretty hard to justify, and I think that's sad in its own right in the fact that it took so little. I mean, we can argue the merits of going over there, but I think the reason that we wouldn't go back is economics, and I think the reason we went to start could have just as well been economics also. And because you're right, that military-industrial complex, war is a good business for them.
Well, the one thing they might want to go over there for a humanitarian mission or whatever. But I mean, we can't forget the reason we went over there is because they came on our soil and did it. So we might just wait for that to happen again, and they might be like, well,
yeah, and that could be. And I would. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go.
Yeah, and I would say it's debatable to me in my mind anyway. On because we were there, they weren't here. That's debatable. I mean,
Right.
We didn't go into Saudi Arabia. We didn't go into Pakistan.
Right.
We didn't go into, and that's where a lot of this comes from. And I think you're right. If we stay out, would be on economic reasons. If we go back in, it'll be under a new administration, probably GOP.
Yep.
And it'll be the Democrats screwed this up so bad.
We're gonna
look what's
fix
happening.
it.
We're going to fix it.
Yep.
And the Democrats and the Republicans, that whole establishment, will be like, yeah, we're on board, right?
Yep.
Because I can't wait to get my board seat.
Yep.
Short-term thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when they were, I don't know this for sure, but the day was happening, when everyone's evacuating, everyone saw the videos of the,
planes.
Afghan citizens, people were falling from the planes because they were trying to get on and whatever. And that was
Trying to hang
just
on.
brutal. Yeah, I was trying to hang on. It was brutal. So the people that were on those planes, were those just Americans, or were those people that we just said you could come have freedom?
I actually don't know. I don't know.
I saw a photo of one plane that was just full of Afghan male citizens just sitting on the plane.
What? Sorry, I've got something to say.
And
about
one
that.
thing that's just concerning for me is like, okay, so we just did your whole country totally wrong. Americans just totally abandoned you, and you're lucky enough to get on this plane to come to America. And you're just an Afghan citizen. You had to abandon your whole family to come to America. And how do you feel about America once you get here? Yeah, you're coming here for freedom, but you had to abandon your whole family, and they pretty much abandoned you. I mean, that's kind of probably the taste that they have in their mouth. And then here's the honest truth. How many of those people do we actually know are truly Afghanistan citizens that are on these planes? Because Boston bombing, they weren't screaming at the rooftops. Boston Marathon bombing, they weren't screaming at the rooftops that we're terrorists and we're gonna,
I think Micah could
to
speak to that.
Yeah.
I think you got the same thought process.
Well, yeah, I think obviously we're not very good at vetting people just in general. It's not politically expedient enough. And I think one thing that interests me with those photos is where's the women and kids?
Yep. Right.
So
exactly.
So and I kind of understand your point as far as abandoning their family. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't want to take away from the 66,000, I think it is, Afghanistan army or police who did give their lives, right? But at some point, it's take care of your own shit, right?
Yep.
Like, this isn't our deal.
Yeah.
This is at best, this is an Afghan civil war. We made a huge mistake staying for as long as we did.
And leaving as bad as we did. And I think the withdrawal, at some point we had to be done. Yeah, I think I agree. I think everyone is in agreement that we should have gotten out of there. It's just how could we have done it better?
We couldn't have done it worse.
Yeah, this is the worst.
I think you've got the base case model of how not to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but one thing that I will say, so my father-in-law, Vietnam veteran, and he's not much interested in watching news. I don't think he watches CNN or Fox or anything because he's
mainstream media.
He likes to fish, and he doesn't like that. And my wife called him and told him what was going on, and he turned on the TV, and he called her, and he said to her, he goes, well, it doesn't look like America's learned much. He goes, I turned it on and I saw that Chinook, and he goes, just reminded me of Saigon all over again. And I thought, that's true.
If you see the pictures, they look identical.
I mean, yeah, but I don't think we learned much.
Nope.
Because like you said, I don't think there's a poorer example of how we did it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just we don't want to learn.
It's that short-term thinking. Get the seats. Get your power.
I haven't talked to my dad really about this whole thing at all. I'm not sure exactly how to bring it up, and I think there's certainly between Saigon or Vietnam and here, there's a lot of differences.
There is a lot of differences
because I think from a soldier's point of view, nobody's blaming us.
Yeah,
right. Which is a lot different than what it was, in early 70s. And we all volunteered.
Yeah.
And I, don't give me the victim. Oh, poor me. I went to wherever, Iraq or Afghanistan. You signed up. What did you think was going to happen? But that's a whole nother story. So, whereas Vietnam, they were drafted, a lot of it, they didn't have a choice to go or not.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not only did the government turn on you and I read this and I would need to confirm it, but we won every major engagement in Vietnam. I think the kill rate was like 3-1, right? So, and again, I need to confirm that. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But our government gave up, and the American people gave up, and when you don't have that type of support, and then you see, okay, you sent me there, my buddies died, I'm missing a leg, my life is forever changed, and when I come home, you spit on me.
And you don't support me.
The government doesn't support me. And then you see that.
Yes.
Where we're retreating.
Yep.
I can't imagine. To me, this is it's the same but different.
Yeah.
Where the government's doing the same thing because it's government.
Yep.
But the people are not. And I think soldiers, for the most part, feel that support.
Yeah.
I think almost to an unhealthy level, but again, that's another discussion.
Well, but I think what you're saying for a veteran, that brings up, when you see that, that brings up an old wound. To me, it would anyway.
Yeah. And I think, and again, I think, we talked about kind of those three parts, that third part being like, how do you parse those feelings of in Afghanistan, Juice was killed, Sergeant Justice. And it's like, what does that mean? Right. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, again, I think, I guess for me, I have to fall back onto, we were there because we volunteered to go. And when you're there, you're fighting for the guy next to you. And that's exactly how he died. And there's honor in that. And whether or not governments figure out, did we win the war? Did we lose the war? Did we just stop fighting?
That doesn't change any of that.
It doesn't change any of that.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we have to, as a community, as a veteran community, have to hold on to. Is it's the guy beside you. The guy in the suit in Washington means nothing. We could have, well, we did. We won within 6 months or whatever. Everything else after that was we're going to do our duty. We're going to serve our country the best we know how.
Right.
And call it good. I think there's a lot of us that, hey, drop me in Kabul. We'll get them out.
Yeah.
But again, the government's not willing to do that.
Right.
If you start sending missions to rescue Americans, that makes it look even worse.
Yeah, you look more desperate, and that's why they're reluctant to do it.
Yep.
We've moved to a time of optics. Everything is about optics and how it looks. It doesn't matter what the
Me. That's what it's about. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
Well, so
this has been a light one.
Light
conversation.
right. Yeah. Well, we had. So I think we'll have to get Micah back on here because so we have a lot of good conversations about the financial world, and that's something that I think we're both obviously interested in. But I think we've gone long enough for today.
I had just one thing. Maybe just ask Micah one more thing. Where do you think we go from here? Like what?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good question.
What? Predictions, what questions do we need to have answered? Like, where do we go from here as a country or as what Americans should think? Or I don't know, just.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I was going to make predictions, it's that we're going to end up back there. And it's either back there or it'll be somewhere. You can't go 10 years without deploying somewhere. And I think it'll be there. Just because it's when we talked about it, when those videos start coming out and those pictures, the world will react.
Yep. Or the attack on American soil. I mean,
or
something like that happens.
Which, which is certainly possible. That
with those photos, we kind of skimmed past that a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
I would like to get your thoughts on that because I kind of jumped in and then Dad jumped in on you and you couldn't really finish your thought about how all the Afghan men on the planes and there's no women and children and you don't know if someone's a Taliban or if they're just a citizen and it just does look a little fishy. I mean, if you have seen the photos, it does look a little fishy. If you're a civilian, you want your kids and your wife on that plane too.
It's like one of two things are happening. Either we are telling them, the State Department, you can come, but you can't bring your family, which is unbelievable.
Messed up.
It wouldn't be surprising. Right. Or they're just choosing to abandon their family and try to get to some essence of freedom because they either helped us in some way or I'm sure there's a few of them that are trying to get to America to wreak havoc. Right.
Yep.
I guess them choosing, young men especially, choosing to abandon the families, I'm not even sure that would be surprising because women are property there, right? Yep. Children are property. It's not a whole lot different, just in my opinion, or from my experience, how they view them. They're not a whole lot different than their goats. They treat them about the same. So is it real surprising that they're like, screw you, I'm out of here? No, but are we idiots? Let's fill a C-17 with a bunch of military age males. Oh, that's just absurd.
You're right.
It's absurd.
It does look
like it just boggles my mind.
Yeah, right.
But I think that again, it kind of goes to the mindset of kind of where they are. It's almost medieval, right?
Yeah.
Just the mindset is medieval, and we spent 20 years trying to bring them into the a current century, maybe not even this one, at least a little bit more current. It's not going to happen. So I think prediction wise is I think we'll end up back there in one way or another, probably under a new administration who's trying to fix what the Democrats did. The GOP likes their wars just as much as Hillary. So I don't know societally what will unite us at this point.
Well, this pains me to say, but if another terrorist attack happens that's as big as 9/11,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I would hope.
Yep.
But I don't really think so because here's what's going to happen. Let's say another Boston Marathon bombing happens, right? Well, it's Biden's fault because we brought all these military age males from Afghanistan, right? No, it's Trump's fault because he did something. Well, no, really it's George Bush's fault. Well, no, really if you think about it, Obama did, and it still has that everything is so politicized, which is by design in my opinion, that the more you can divide people into groups and you can tribalize people, the easier it is to control them.
100%. I mean, our entire political system has dissolved into division. We want to put everybody in a box. We are not Americans first anymore. You're a Republican or a Democrat. You're a liberal or you're conservative. You're a vaxxer or an anti-vaxxer. You are a
proud of African American, an Asian, a Hispanic, a Caucasian. Yeah, you're either gay, you're bi, you're straight, and we're just going to try to get you at every point you possibly can.
The more the politicians can divide, and I will say,
and the more they can get all of us to focus on those things instead of the things that are actually happening right now.
Yep.
The more you guys don't know what the hell's happening.
Look at this. Don't look over here.
Right.
Don't look at what I'm doing over here.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a tough.
That whole intersectionality. It's how high can I get on the victimhood status, because that is the new high. I wouldn't say it's not the elite class. It's a new higher class.
Yeah.
The more of a victim I can be, which I think veterans fall into that. Everybody falls into kind of being a little bit of a victim where, if I can get pity, right now I can get a little bit of
I can get a leg up.
Yeah. And so you feel bad for me, so you give me X, or society gives me X.
Yep.
And again, it goes back to what we are talking about before. It's all that inward focus. And we're not connected as citizens to something bigger than ourselves anymore. Yep. It's not we're the United States of America. It's no, this is my experience
in America.
In America.
Yep.
And so I don't know. I hope something could unite us. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that even another 9/11 style, we're not going to get 9/12 again.
Nope.
Where everybody's essentially on the same page.
Yeah. Also, we talked about, it'll be politicians versus politicians, but the fatalities, if the terrorist attack would happen, they would describe how those people died, what class they fit in. If they were a black man, if they were a Hispanic, maybe this is a race attack by one of our own in America. They'd flip it in so many different ways to just cause more division. Yeah. I mean, I would hope not.
It's interesting because Yeonmi Park, I don't know if you know who that is. Wrote
on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
And my gosh.
I had listened to her on Jordan Peterson's podcast. And it's the same. You look at every, let's say, totalitarian regime, whether communist or socialist or whatever, it's always you have to separate into classes first.
Yep.
And the more we're separated, again, the easier we are to control. And it's the same thing that's happening here. There's a famous YouTube clip of, I don't know, it's Yuri something. He was a former KGB. I don't know if you've seen this. It was like from the 70s or maybe 80s. And he's talking about how communism will take over the United States without ever firing a shot.
Yes, I have seen that.
And
yes.
it's the same playbook that he brings out, same playbook that they have in North Korea.
Because we're geographically, it's really hard to invade America. So the only way to flip America is
from the inside.
From the inside.
Yep. So, I don't know. I don't know where we go from here.
I think it's a good prediction, though. I think I think ultimately, if a Republican gets elected in office, hell, even if a Democrat gets elected in office, they're going to try to fix it.
Yeah. Well, and I would say even, at this point, even when, probably not if, Kamala takes over.
Yeah.
Because,
where has she been lately? I sure haven't seen her much.
She does not want her face on this.
Nope.
She sure is awful hard to find lately.
Yeah.
Well, so is Biden. Has he spoke to a world leader since?
He's got sleepy time.
He came back from vacation, or at least he went down and watched cartoons in the bunker for a while.
At the pudding cup.
They got a picture of him there.
So, yeah, and I think it could be as easy that no matter who it is. I mean, we're at the point, and I think that's why, like him, love him, hate him, whatever. And he brought a lot of it on himself, but I think that's why they hated Trump so much.
Because he's an outsider.
Yeah, because he wasn't part of the group.
He wasn't trying to get a check. He wasn't trying to.
Right.
He was genuinely trying to do what he thought was right for America.
Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily for himself. Right. Obviously not for himself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think he lost plenty.
But damn, those mean tweets, though. We can't have them mean tweets.
Yeah, can't have that. So, and because he's not part of that system of again, we have to be somewhere fighting someone for some reason.
Yep.
They you can't have that. Kamala would be part of that system, just like Biden is, just like Hillary was, just like George W. Bush was, just like it's John McCain.
Yeah.
It's not even a Republican Democrat thing. It's a class thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think if we start looking at things as a class system, that's where we're getting, and that's what we're getting into, things become a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
You have the elite class, you have the proletariat, right?
Yep.
I don't know.
Boy, we got to stop getting people on here with such radical views.
Yeah, no kidding.
So much different than our own.
I thought it was really good. I think we should end it on a lighter note, though, and just say, I think people are waking up.
Yeah.
I think people understand that mainstream media is trying to put us in classes. I think people are getting that you can't really trust the media, and politicians are here for that short-term thinking. They're doing it for legacy purposes. They're doing it for a board.
Their legacy, not our legacy.
No, their legacy, right. They're doing it for their legacy purposes. And I have hope that people will figure it out. Yeah. I really do. I think people will. Hopefully, I think you need to realize that the government, if you think the government has your best interest in their heart, you're lying to yourself.
Sadly,
you really are lying to yourself, because they don't. They don't have it, and they're trying to divide us because that's just easier for them to control us.
And I think that would be maybe the bright spot, or what I would hope is that, like, your generation down, I think is a lot smarter than what we were.
They don't accept things at face value as easily as we did.
Well, we kind of have to, because hell, for you guys, when you saw something on the news, it was the news.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And there was that was the truth. Now it's kind of like,
we thought it was.
Even video evidence is a little like,
is it?
Is that video evidence? Is that actually the truth of what's actually going on?
Right.
So, I mean, we kind of have to be that way.
Yeah.
And I
think with what we've seen, especially over the last year and a half or so, with the pandemic response, I think that kids, you go to any middle school or elementary school, and there's a bunch of kids that will just tell you this is freaking stupid.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to get into the efficacy of masks or whatnot, but I think there's something in this next generation that is like, you're not going to control me. It's almost like, how would I put that? Conservatism is too broad of a term, but more of what would right now be considered a right wing think, even though it would be traditional liberalism think.
Yeah.
Right. That sort of, I don't want the government controlling me. I don't want, that sort of mindset, I think is
prevalent.
It's kind of what they have. And that's the rebellion. The rebellion is, no, you're not going to tell me that A is B or that 2 + 2 = 5. That's stupid.
I'm going to figure it out for myself and realize what the truth is.
Yeah. And so it's like that type of thinking is the new leather jacket, right? When leather jacket, you were a rebel if you wore a leather jacket.
Right.
Right. Well, being a rebel now is thinking for yourself.
Yep.
And I think
that's great. That's great.
That's a great
I'll take
thing.
that.
Yeah, I'll take that all day long too. Yeah. And I think people need to really realize that. Like, we are not as divided as they want to tell us we're divided. We are Americans, and they're going after headlines to try to divide us as much as we can. Just respect your fellow man. And I think 98% of the people out there, majority of the people respect their fellow man, no matter what your skin color is, no matter who you want to have sex with. You know, we respect our fellow man, but they want to go for the people and the stories and the headlines that are going to cause the division and show that to us, so we feel more divided than we actually are.
That's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
and I'll say this. We hope you got some value from this. This was a pretty impromptu pod or episode because we saw what was happening. We wanted to get somebody on here that had a little different perspective. And we say this all the time, but you know, if you don't agree with us, you don't have to agree with us, and you don't have to agree with me or any of us, but do your own research. Go find your own answers. Do not let somebody, whether it be me or whether it be a politician, don't let that person tell you what you ought to think, because you need to be responsible for you. And so tell us what you think. Leave us a comment. Leave us a question for next week, or not next week, 2 weeks, we'll do a Q&A. Thank you, Micah, for coming on.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
It was amazing. I thought it was a great show. I think it was needed right now at this time.
No, I agree.
In America.
Yeah, it was a good time. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Have a great weekend.